Welcome to the Scalable Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we discuss the most scalable strategies, tools, and approaches to successfully invest in real estate. Learn how to make the most impact of your time, automate your real estate investing business, find off-market deals with minimum time invested, and leverage your capital to create as many income streams as possible so that you can achieve true financial independence. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Mason Clement. Hi, Scalable Investors. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to tell you about a group that I'm a part of called HiveMind. If you're serious about taking the next step in your real estate investing career, then this is definitely a group that you need to join. Some of our members are making $90,000 and more per month, and as much as $300,000 on just one deal. And at the same time, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars like you typically would joining other mastermind groups. This is only $99 per month. And when you join, you'll gain access to a robust integrated CRM software that allows you to track your leads, run automated triggers, and ultimately scale your marketing efforts. So the difference here is that you're not left high and dry, but gain access to a support network that allows you to use that tool and learn from other more experienced real estate investors. So to learn more, go to scalablerei.com/HiveMind. That's HIVEMIND. Thanks a lot. Let's get into the episode. All right. Cool. Yeah, I'm just going to do a little intro I always do just to get in the swing of things. And I'll use your little brief bio that you had sent. Okay. Here we go. Hi, Scalable Investors. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Mason Clement. And today we have Corey Geary, who is husband, father, and God believer, seven-figure wholesaler. He's basically hitting grand slams every day. So really excited to have him on the show. I think we're going to learn a ton, including a new term that I just was aware of called novation. So before I steal his thunder, let's just jump into things. Corey, what's going on?
Hey, Mason, how you doing, man? Doing great. I really appreciate, having me on the show today. This is amazing. Truly honor and blessed. So yeah, doing wonderful.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad you could take some time to speak with us. So every guest I have on, I'd like to just go into the background a little bit. Everyone's story is different. Their journey is different. So why don't you just discuss that a little bit?
Absolutely, man. So before real estate, I was a blackjack dealer. So I was in the casino industry. And I dealt blackjack for 17 years. And in blackjack, if you're working in the right casinos, you can make some good money because you make tips. And so I had some money saved up through my dealing career. And I was literally love watching that show on HGTV, Flip or Flop, the Tarek Al Musa show that everyone used to watch. And watching there with my girlfriend at the time. And she was a part-time realtor and part-time blackjack dealer. And she knew I had some money saved up. And she's like, why don't you flip a house so I can list it? And that was like literally what got the sparks going in my, the gears in my hand. I was like, I don't know, why don't I list the house? It looks easy enough, 30 minutes and they make $80,000. This seems, like something doable. And I had some money. And so literally the next morning, I'm running around my blocks. I do my morning runs and I see one of those signs, those bandit signs that says, fix and flip, buy price 250, ARV 350. And I was like, oh, okay. And literally I thought it was, I saw it as a sign from God that, this is something that I need to pursue. And I stopped on my morning run. I called that phone number. It was Net Worth Realty. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They're kind of like New Western. There's another one out there that's huge in that space. And so I called the company. I bought the house. It took me 6 months to flip, and I made $8,000. And that was my very first deal I did in real estate. So what happened after that is I went to some RIA events, started networking, the free RIA events we have locally, and I met some wholesalers. And so my second deal I bought off of a wholesaler, and I made $20,000 off that one. On my third deal, though, I kind of already thought I knew what I was doing. I was an idiot, and I bought 4 houses all at once. And at the time, the contractor I was using was very problematic, so we got rid of him. But the issue was the new contractor we brought on was even worse. And he took me to the cleaners, and on those 4 houses, between the rehab money that we gave him, the money that we put in the down payment, and the holding costs, I lost $250,000 on those 4 houses because he saw a mark on my head. I was a newbie, and he really took us to the cleaners on that. And I lost my 401k money from the casino. I lost obviously my previous flip money, and I lost, my life savings that I had. And I didn't want to give up real estate. So as I asked the question, I was like, well, I wonder how these wholesalers get their deals. So I literally Googled, and this is back in 2017, I think it was. And I Googled how do wholesalers get deals? And can you guess who might have popped up? Well, it was Mr. Sean Terry. So Sean Terry pops up, and he's got all his, coaching platforms. And I bought into one of his, his platforms, or I bought into the Flip to Freedom Academy, and went down that rabbit hole and started doing some bandit signs, started doing some direct mail. And about 10 months later, I locked up my first wholesale deal, and I sold it to the wholesaler who I bought my deals from when I was flipping. And I made $10,000. And that was exactly how I got into wholesaling. I was like, wow, this is good. So, and then I've just been off to the races since then.
Okay, great. That's exactly what I had in mind in terms of your background and what got you here. But there's one thing missing now. I know that you've since built out a whole office with staff and everything,
yes,
which is definitely the goal everyone should have in terms of just scaling yourself out of the business. So how long did it take for you to be like a one-man team to go in there? And what was that process and journey like?
Yeah, it took a minute. As I was moving along my journey, I discovered cold calling, and I was like, okay, this is a cheap way to get leads. And so what I did is I built out a call floor in my living room. I put a bunch of cubicles in my living room, and I hired people to come in and cold call. I just went I posted an ad on Craigslist and Indeed, and then I hired college students come in and cold call for me, and they would just bring leads into me. And I was still a one-man show though, and I would go out on appointments and lock those deals up. Now this became very problematic because not only was I running my real estate business, which I was a solopreneur on, I had to run my call floor with all these college kids, so it was like babysitting, and I was still working my casino job. So I wasn't sleeping at night. It was very, very hard, but I was making money, and it was moving along. And what had happened is some of these cold callers that I had were so good, and just, some of them were bad, which I got rid of. And, you have a lot of turnover, but some of them stuck, and they were amazing at their job. And so I was like, do you want to try? One of them, I was like, do you want to try acquisitions? And they're like, well, what is that? Well, it's exactly what I'm doing. Unlocking these deals up. Do you want to try, doing this yourself? I can give you some training. I can give you, these videos that I've watched that I've learned from. And that's exactly what I did. So my very first hire was from the cold callers as an acquisition. And she started, making calls to the leads that I had. And that's how my first hire. And then another one was dispositions, obviously. That was Sylvester, and he was an amazing cold caller. And I asked him if he wanted to try dispositions. And I was like, just watch me how I do it. And I talk to the buyers. You're seeing it every day already, and you're around it because you're cold calling for me. And he transitioned to that role great, and he's still with me to this day. Sylvester's like my lead disposition / COO of the company. He understands the business model really well. He's able to run it when I'm not in the office and take care of, majority of the problems that are coming through the company. So that was how I started. So I was working out of my house. I had acquisitions, had a disposition, still doing the cold calling. But the HOA was giving me a lot of complaints, because I had all these cars parked down in front of my house, and they thought I was having keg parties or something. I don't know, but they were complaining and threatening to fine me. And so I was like, well, man, I need to get an office. So that's what pushed me to get an office. And then after I got the office, we were still doing the cold calling, cold calling on steroids, really. I mean, we're really doing a lot of cold calling, RVM, and texting. It was just in my local market. But through masterminds and networking, I've met a couple people who were doing the nationwide model with PPC. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is very scalable. And so I integrated, myself into learning PPC and how to go nationwide on the wholesaling model. And so we transitioned to that model early of last year. And we went full bore in it. And I learned PPC. I run it all myself. And what I love about that marketing channel versus cold calling, it's easily scalable because when I want to go into a new market, I just turn that market on. Where in cold calling, you got to pull all new data, skip trace it, and then get new callers in place. And it's brain damage. I mean, obviously you can hire a company to do it for you, but it's still a lot that goes to it. And so the PPC, man, has just been game changer for us as far as scalability.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely what I've heard from another guest on our show. And it's something I want to get into as well, because I'm still doing the old fashioned way. And I think everyone kind of needs to start out that way. Like you mentioned in a different interview, cold calling is like the gateway drug to get in.
That's what I was going to say. I call it the gateway drug to wholesaling. That's exactly what it is.
So well, you had the call center, and then you transitioned folks into acquisition disposition roles. But what were they calling initially? Wouldn't that still be like acquisition, or was that just solely wholesaling?
Initially they were just cold callers. So I'd pull the data, skip trace it, and then I would put it in the dialer, and they would just call it and queue up the lead, and then I would be the one to go in and close the lead. So that's what they were initially, just a cold caller, just get me leads. And then, eventually I trained them how to do my job, what I was doing. So.
Okay. More like appointment setters initially.
Yeah, kind of. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know one of the first people I had hired is a Filipino person with like 7 years experience at a call center. And that was what she was doing. But I found I was still working the day job, and I was like, I don't even have time to follow up on these leads. So why don't you just run with that lead? Just get him to sign the contract. That's all I need.
It's great.
But, yeah. It's she got a few in, but actually one of my other guy over in Venezuela, he's been more successful, although it depends on the market and what price point we're at, of course. And that's actually my only hesitation in going nationwide through PPC or really anything is, how do I get up to speed on any of the markets very quickly, but also, how do I know if I'm going to be able to find a buyer, especially if it's like a small inactive market? Because even if I'm focusing on Texas, like someone will say, yeah, I want to sell my property in, whatever it is, Jefferson County or someplace I'm not active in. I'm like, there's no activity there. So how do you do that?
So man, that's an amazing question. So in the beginning, when we first did this, that was probably one of our biggest pain points. Locking deals up, not knowing the market, what deals are being sold for, locking them up too high, not knowing your market. That's going to come through just crap ton of repetition of getting to know those new virtual markets and making sure that you're deep enough on your offer than you would be if you're going belly to belly with the seller, because you got to make sure you're just deep enough to have those spreads built in, because you really don't know the market like you do your own backyard. And so, maybe in the beginning, out of every 5 contracts we'd get, 1 would close, because either, we lock it up too high, which was the most common issue, or we couldn't find a buyer because we didn't know how to find a buyer. In the beginning, what we would do, we would just go on realtor.com, scrape the first 5 pages for realtors who represented buyers in that market, and cold call and text those realtors. We'd also pull the flippers out of PropStream in that market, cold call and text them. And then I also bought the nationwide realtors list that has all the realtors' phone numbers and emails nationwide. And then we pull out, those numbers, cold call and text them. And it was a real grind in the beginning. And so just through the repetition is how we learned how to comp deals correctly, and also leaning on other wholesalers that I've got a lot of good relationships with in these other markets, just from being in so many masterminds, and then asking their opinions. And then as far as the buyers, man, I stumbled in the beginning when it really took us off. I stumbled across a platform called Investor Lift. And Investor Lift, what this guy has done is he's uploaded all the buyers across the United States onto one platform. So that way, if you get a deal out in Texas and I'm here in Arizona, I can blast it out and the buyers will see it. Those buyers in Texas will see that deal. That worked great for big markets. For these smaller markets, like you had mentioned, that became still a problem. So we learned how to list our wholesale deals on the MLS. And so that is the main form we sell our deals now, is through the MLS nationwide. But still, there was another problem. In some of these small markets, when you're trying to sell a cash deal, there's not a lot of investors there. There's just not a lot of investor activity. So, but there's MLS activity. So we're like, what can we do to still monetize these leads? And we found novations. And novations is where we could sell a deal on the MLS to an end user with conventional FHA and VA financing and monetize that lead, where we, as before, we're just selling to investors. So novation has been a game changer. And I would say over half my whiteboard right now is novations. And I have 57 deals on the board right now. And so everyone knows in the company, we're a novation company first, wholesale second, because the novation model works so much better than wholesale when you try to do this nationwide model with, all these rural markets.
Okay. Got it. But it obviously takes some time for the lender to go through and approve that loan and everything. So how do you manage the lead times?
So when we're doing these deals, we're letting the seller know, hey, we're not your buyer. Because being as investors, we need to make a marginal profit. But also, with that being said, as investors, we are great at bringing buyers to the table to get your price, because we have to sell our fix and flips for top dollar. So if we can partner with a buyer through means of realtors, the MLS, and our network of buyers, and get your asking price, will that work for you? And we let them know we'll take care of all the title costs, all the commissions. You don't have to deal with any realtors. We'll handle the appraisers and we'll handle the inspection process. All you got to do is sit back and collect your check. And they love it. And so we let them know right up front, this could take between 2 and 3 months. So that way the expectations are put up front with them. And that's also why I like novations versus wholesale. Where in wholesale, you're working in that gray area. You're not letting the seller know you're signing the contract. You don't want your buyer to know what price you got it locked up at. And there's all this gray area that you're trying to wiggle through, and it kills deals a lot of times. With novations, everything is up front with the seller, and then you're working only with realtors on the back end. So it's a lot cleaner. And so they're not giving us a lot of pushback on the 60 to 90 days. And a lot of times these sellers who are needing a higher price on their property, that doesn't work for wholesale, but they've been talking to a lot of investors who have been pitching creative financing. And we'll let them know, listen, we're not going to ask you to take your money over 10, 20, or 30 years. We're going to get your money in 2 to 3 months. And that's how we get past that objection. And a lot of them, they love it because they're calling us because they want convenience and they want cash offer. And that's the whole reason why they're ringing our phones. But with a concierge service, it still does that. They get their net number. We're taking care of the whole process. They just need to wait a little bit more time.
Okay. So on MLS, do you have to designate it as a novation, or is that just the term it's referred to? Or
that's the term it's referred to. Is what it's called legally. So on MLS, we are acting as seller because we get an attorney in fact signed by the seller to allow us to conduct the transaction on their behalf. And so that's how we're able to sign all the offers on their behalf, negotiate with the realtors, sign the broker paperwork, sign any disclosures, anything like that, and deal with the title company on their behalf.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm actually should tomorrow close on a deal like that. I just didn't realize it was called novation, but I wasn't fully transparent like you're talking about. So it
will help
the wholesaling.
Save deals. Yep, it will help save deals then you're able to sell it to a conventional finance buyer. And the way we're able to get paid off on those financing buyers is that we put a lien on the property, and any financing company approves all lien payoffs. So a mortgage is a lien payoff, so they'll approve that. A mechanic's lien is a lien payoff. They always approve that. So we never get any pushback from the lenders because our fee is just a lien that's getting paid off.
Oh, like a deed of trust, or
it's a notice of interest is what it is. A notice of interest lien. It's very similar to mechanic's lien.
Okay. Notice of interest. Interesting.
Notice of interest, and then we're submitting a release of interest with a dollar amount to zero out the HUD for our payoff. Yeah, I paid an attorney thousands of dollars to draft all this paperwork up. The novation and indemnification, the contract, the notice of interest, the release, all the paperwork that we use to conduct the transaction.
Okay, got it. Does that ever become an issue? Like if everyone can see how much you're making, or is it just not that large of a spread?
An issue yet. Yep, it's not have been an issue yet because it just goes on a line item as a lien payoff, and the seller already knows that we're getting paid from the buyer. So we're letting them know this is the net number to you. We're going to take care of any repairs that need to be done through the inspection, take care of all the realtor fees, all the title costs, and we're going to make a marginal profit from the buyer. So we have gotten zero pushback up to this point. Now, will it happen? I'm sure it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just that's the industry we're in. It happens in wholesale. And when it happens, the novation and indemnification contract protects us, and the notice of interest clouding title will protect us. So we'll just, cross that bridge when we get there. But I mean, we've done a ton of novations this year and have had no pushback on that because the way we set the expectations up front.
Okay, got it. And I'm assuming it's usually like a $10,000 spread margin.
Oh man, no, it's more. Our average assignment is around 17,000. I would say our average novation is around 30,000. We have some close at 60,000, some are close at 50. I mean, our novation fees are bigger than our assignment fees. My lowest one is 5,000, just to be completely transparent. So, I mean, you are going to have your low ones too, because you just didn't predict exactly how much the condition of the property aesthetically was when you went to market, and you had to adjust accordingly.
Okay. Got it. In terms of deciding when the right time is to go nationwide with PPC campaigns, when is that? Because I feel like you have to get some reps in first before just drinking from a fire hose with all those leads. Yeah. What do you have to have set up, and what do you think is the right time?
The right time is when you're doing, at least probably 5 deals in your own backyard on a consistent basis monthly. You're understanding the process of how title works. You're understanding with all the contracts. You're understanding how to talk to sellers, how to talk to buyers. You got the business kind of the understanding of it on lockdown. You're just looking to scale now. I would never suggest anybody to come right out of the gate and go nationwide wholesaling, because it's just going to be, you're setting yourself up a failure really quick. And one thing I did, and I always like talking about this because I don't want anyone else doing this. When I went nationwide, I just turned off all my local marketing and turned on the nationwide marketing. And so I turned off what was paying the bills. I turned off my bread and butter, and I went to this nationwide model. On the first month, I lost $70,000. The second month, I lost $50,000. And the third month, I lost 30. And then at the fourth month, we started getting traction and we started making money. So it took me time to transition into the nationwide model. So I recommend anybody who's thinking about this to make it just a small arm of your business, but don't turn off what's working now and what's paying the bills, and slowly transition into it, and then slowly ramp down your local while you're ramping up your nationwide. That was a big mistake I made in the beginning of my journey doing this. And so I recommend to me, all the students I have in my coaching, please do what's working for you now. Don't turn it off. Keep it going. It's paying the lights. It's getting you fed. And then slowly make this an arm of your business. So,
okay. And I'm just thinking of a few things. The 70, 50, 30K losses, was that just from the PPC expenses, or what were those losses?
PPC, payroll, all my overhead. I was in the office in. Yeah, man, I just went full bore in, and it was bad. I mean, we're still paying all our systems and software. My monthly overhead right now is around 80K a month. Just to keep the lights on and going. We are working on things right now to get that overhead down. I would like to see it under 50. But in the beginning, man, you don't know what you don't know. And I just turned everything on. I had a bunch of employees, and it was just one big mess, to say the least.
Okay.
And then when we started slowly getting traction as deals were closing, and like I said, we weren't doing novations then. It was only wholesale, and it was a tough transition.
Okay, but I guess you just had some capital to absorb those losses.
I did have some capital because I already have been wholesaling for a good year and a half, and I was still fixing and flipping here locally. I've never stopped fixing and flipping. When I get a deal that comes across my plate and it's here local, and I think the numbers are okay, then I'll take it down. I mean, in this market, it's crazy. Anytime I fix and flip a house, I'm getting over asking. It's a bidding war every single time. So I'm trying to grab everything I can locally. We're even doing our first virtual flip right now in Miami. We got a deal that we've been working, it's a probate deal, and it's been in escrow for a year now, and we're about to close on it. I'm going to flip it because it probably needs maybe about $20,000. I got a lot of, friends who are wholesalers and investors out there who will help me get some general contractors in there. And I'm going to do my first virtual flip here coming soon. So I had some money in the bank to answer your question. But I did lose a lot of sleep at night, and I knew if it kept going, I was going to have to close the doors. So that's why I just recommend to everybody, please, don't turn off what's working and just turn this on a little, very little, just a little bit, slightly, and maybe spend around $1,500 a month in the beginning, getting those leads coming in nationwide, understanding how the PPC works, getting it optimized. That was another thing, I had to spend a lot of money in PPC in the beginning to get leads because I didn't know how to run PPC correctly. So that was a huge learning curve for me. So I was blowing a lot of dollars. Our cost per conversion in the beginning was probably around $700 cost per lead. So it was astronomical. And now at this point, we're at $43 cost per lead. So it was like night and day once I really learned, how to utilize Google.
Okay, that was another question I had. Do you feel like it's learned best through trial and error, or is there a resource you can recommend people go to?
Yeah, get coaching and mentorship on it, or buy a course on it. There's a lot of courses out there you can get into if you do some research that are good. We offer coaching and mentorship on it, but ours is on the whole A to Z nationwide wholesaling, with PPC as your main marketing channel, and novations as one of your exit strategies is what we're teaching on. But find somebody who's already doing it, someone who you vibe with, and learn from them. Because if you go and just try to do it yourself, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to spend a lot of money. One way or another, you're going to pay for it. Unless you're already like a complete Google genius and you know how Google works, and maybe then you don't need the hand holding that I needed in the beginning, because I'm not a tech guy and that's just not my thing. And software and all that stuff is very difficult for me, but I had to learn it if I wanted to scale the business. So
okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really feel like it's so true. You either pay with your time or your money, and you might spend years spinning your wheels trying to figure it out. And then like at that point, you might be burnt out and not want to do it anymore anyway. That's just my experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might as well just pay someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd had a coaching and mentor from the beginning of my journey, because maybe I would have lost all that money. Maybe he would have said, no, you need to you need to do a background check on this contractor, look at the ROC, the Register of Contractors, follow up with some of his previous clients. I don't know, I wouldn't have probably got as burned as bad if I had a mentor. But since then, I've had coaches and mentors, all throughout my whole journey. I've been part of mastermind groups. I'm part of 6 masterminds now. And I'm a very hardcore advocate of mentorship. I've even got sort of like a coach mentor nanny right now. We just had a newborn baby, and she's teaching us everything on how to take care of a newborn baby, because I don't know how to do that. So I'd rather just pay for the speed and convenience and learn how to do it. Someone can do it better than you.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. I've heard that they might teach you some stuff at the hospital, but I guess it only goes so far.
They don't teach you much. Yeah. They taught me very little bit, and they let us go. We were in there for 24 hours. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. It's been fun. So yeah, man, I feel like my superpower is copy and paste. I look at what other people are doing. I'll pay to access their information, and I'll copy and paste them. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to try to make it my own thing. I want to know what works, implement it. It made them a millionaire. I know it can make me a millionaire, and go from there.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm a big believer in. I think one of the first things when I started to get into real estate investing was, I was told that growing up, you're taught to not look at other people's test answers and don't cheat and all this stuff. But it's actually the opposite. Once you're an adult, you need to just have the person give you the test answers and just do exactly that. Don't mess it up. Just copy and paste. So I love that. It's exactly right.
Man. 120%. That's the life hack right there.
Yeah.
Read a lot of books. Go to a lot of YouTube videos. YouTube University. consume as much as you can for free. Go to free RIA events, network with people who are already doing deals. And then, yeah, and when you start getting a little bit of money in the bank, start paying for that shortcut, that time, man, is so valuable. And the money you save.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of, you said $1,500 starting out, but what point should I be looking at as I scale up the PPC? Like, kind of what are you spending per month now?
Right now, we're at $25,000 a month on PPC. Right now. So scaling, as far as scalability, that's all in your comfort zone. And I would suggest when you start getting deals closing out of that marketing channel, putting that money right back into the marketing PPC and scaling it that way. So spending $1,500 a month might take you 2 or 3 months to close a deal. Maybe you make $15,000. Okay, now you got a little padding in the bank to scale up the PPC, maybe to $3,000 a month. And then rinse and repeat and go to $5,000 a month and $7,500. You always want to scale in increments. You never want to be like, okay, I'm 1,500. This is working a little bit, and then jump up to 20,000. Because you're just going to cause yourself a bunch of headache and problems.
Yeah, I think that's the balance. That you need to have those systems and processes in place, but at the same time, when you're starting out, you can't spin your wheels and try to have the grandest masterpiece set up either. You have to just hit the ground running at some point, right?
Correct. So scale in slowly, you know what I mean? And with PPC, as we were scaling, I was, analyzing all our markets. I was looking at the KPIs, looking at how many deals we're getting out of that market, looking at what our cost per deal was, what cost per lead was, how many closings we're getting, what our average deal size is. And I would even talk to my acquisitions and be like, hey guys, how do you guys like playing in Texas? Oh, we love it. We're closing a lot of deals there, and sellers are selling. But they might say, oh no, we hate it. It's a non-disclosure state. We can't comp the deals there. We need to figure out something, new comping process. Talk to your team. If you're a solopreneur, you'll know what the problems are, and that's how I was able to scale state by state. Right now, we're in 42 states. The 8 states that we're not in, there's a reason why we're not playing in those states.
Is that like super tenant friendly places like New York or something?
We're playing in New York. No, we're playing in New York. We're not playing like in Wyoming, West Virginia, the Dakotas. I'd have to pull my campaigns up to let you know exactly, but there's 8 of them that we're not in. But we are in New York. So we'll play there. Like California is a tenant friendly state, but we love California because when we do deals there, they're really big pops. I don't think I've had a deal close there that's under 50,000, but they're very rare. You're going to deal with a lot more problems because of the tenant friendly states, and it's hard to get rid of tenants and squatters. And so it's not as, you're not going to get as many deals because of it. You're going to have a lot more issues.
Okay, got it. So right now I'm focusing on vacant lands because I felt like single family homes are just the highest hanging fruit. And I didn't want to start with the wind in my face. I like to have stuff in my back, toward my back, pushing me to success. So do you feel like PPC could be applied to something like land or other property types, or what do you think?
It can. I think it definitely can be applied to land very easily. Now, your multifamily, we're getting into mobile home parks. That's one of our new strategies that we're doing. It's another arm of my business. These type of properties, it probably wouldn't work too well because like mobile home parks, mom and pops are in the 70s and 80s, and they're not going on there and typing in, sell my mobile home park fast. Same with like big apartment buildings. I don't think these owners are very sophisticated. I don't think they're going to Google as a tool to sell their apartment. But pieces of land, I think people would go to Google. So you just got to put yourself in the mindset of the seller. Would this seller go on Google and try to find a resource to sell that property? And so I think land would work. I've never tried it myself, but I guarantee this: if you were to implement that strategy, your cost per conversion would be so cheap because you probably don't have a lot of competition out there going after just land in the Google PPC space.
Okay, got it. That's what I'm really looking for. My background is actually from bankruptcy trade claims, which sounds like maybe there's zero competition because you never heard of it. You didn't even know that you could do this type of investment, but there's actually the same 5 to 10 buyers. And when the bankruptcy rate is so low, it becomes hyper competitive and the margins are just cut down to nothing. So that's why I'm like really big on avoiding competition. But as I talk about this and my strategy, I wonder, you think it would ever make sense for me to get involved in single family houses, especially like, so I didn't start there and like don't know certain pitfalls, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so, man. As long as you're just kind of how we did the old nationwide thing, I think once you're making good ROI from the land thing and you got some extra money put aside, start just small. You know what I mean? Turn on a small PPC campaign, or maybe turn on a small cold calling campaign and start just dabbling with it. Even with all the heavy competition, there's still a lot of deals out there. And with the nationwide model, your competition is very little. You don't have a lot of people doing this nationwide model. If there's some people out there, but I mean, you implement the novation strategy in there, and then there's almost zero competition. Not a lot of people are doing novations. So, and yeah, and you're still going to pick up your occasional wholesale deal to that strategy. So, no, I think it'd be a great arm to add on to your business. If you're already having success with the land thing, why not, open your buyer pool a little bit more so you can monetize it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because like as I was speaking, I was thinking, well, I don't know, Mason, maybe I'm leaving money on the table. So it's
Yeah,
all,
yeah, I think so. I mean, you're
yeah.
having success at your niche. Now kind of go and see, play in another area a little bit, even though you might think it's like ultra competitive. But for me, it's just a mindset thing. Even when I was here in Phoenix doing deals, just in Phoenix, as you know, Phoenix is like the guru capital of the world for wholesalers. You got Carlos Reyes here in South Chicago. You got, Sean Terry here. You got Brent Daniels, the batch guys, Steve Train. But I was still doing about, 8 to 10 deals a month, and with all this competition. So it's the 80-20 rule. The 20% who put all the work in are going to get 80% of the deals, So if you're out there and you're hustling and bustling, you're going to get deals no matter what market you're in.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So back to building the team, I've already had to terminate different people because they just don't do anything. And it's probably like everyone's issue. So how do you screen candidates and really determine if they're going to be a good fit?
So we use Indeed to get our candidate to start bringing the leads in. In the beginning, I was the one screening them, and I was using the OBG test. It's a sales analysis test, and I would put them through that. It would tell me how well from their answers how qualified they'd be for a sales agent. And then I'd bring them in for a couple interviews. I'd take them out to lunch, and it was just me screening them. And it was a lot of trial and error. You're still gonna have a lot of people that a lot of turnover you're gonna go through, and you're gonna keep the good ones. And now I have my whole team interview them to see if they're gonna be a good cultural fit. My team knows that they're a better culture fit than I do. And what we do to keep our A players is I let them come in on investments with me. So I do oil and gas. We're drilling 3 holes in Texas right now. I'm allowing them to come in with me on that. I allow them to come with me on fix and flips. I allow them to come with me on the mobile home park thing that we're doing. So I allow them to partake in these investment strategies that I'm doing so they can grow too, because at the end of the day, they want to get rich also. So why not you be the vehicle of them getting rich? You're taking all the risk, so you should be paid more because of that. You're kind of paving the path. But the way I keep my A+ players is letting them play with me and treating them like partners, not employees. I think employee is a negative word. We don't call them employees. We call them team members. And we try to keep that culture, throughout the company. And we've kept A+ players because of that reason. Players who probably would have left and created their own business and went on their own, but they decided to stay here because they're treated so well.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great. Because there is that counter argument. Well, there's the flight risk. If you get high caliber in-person people, they get up the learning curve and leave after 6 months. So I should just hire VAs. So what's your view on remote workers and overseas VAs and stuff like that?
We don't use a lot of VAs in our company because our culture is just like, we love coming in the office and hoorah and celebrating when deals close and talking about problems on deals. We're like a family. VAs are good for my technical work. I have 3 right now that work like either they're texting for me, they're pulling lists, skip tracing, they're managing my KPIs, all the real paperwork type stuff I will push off to them. I have them building out my mobile home parks list right now, sellers. And so any work like that is transactional that, that doesn't need the culture fit. But now just because that's what we do doesn't mean that the VAs work. I know a lot of investors who have very great VA teams, and they have good culture in between those teams. They're always on Zoom calls with them. They're giving them bonuses, or, making them part of the family. So I know it can work both ways. But for me, I just love the in-office environment. It gets me up in the morning, me coming in the office and hoorahing around. It just gives me purpose. So I love the environment that I've created. So, but both ways work.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the point I'm at right now. It's like, maybe all of this would just be easier if I did it in person with, someone that, I don't know, just understands me more. Like sometimes my VAs will do stuff and it's like, how would you even think of doing that? It's just ridiculous. Like,
right.
It's frustrating, just wasting time for me, buddy. Come on. Like,
yeah, there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's pros and cons to both, man. And you're going to have your struggles no matter what direction you want to pursue in.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. That's helpful. I think that I was actually going to ask something else. I actually just had forgotten it, but is there anything else that you think we've missed while I think about that?
No, man. I mean, I would just say if you're starting out in your journey, just consume a lot of books, a lot of mindset stuff. One of my favorite books is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. So just consume, be around like-minded people, go to the free events, and try to get around people who have the same goals and dreams that you do. And, and when you can, start getting into masterminds and start getting into coaching. And that's the best way to really get started. Other than that, man, yeah, it's just going to be being a business owner is always a huge learning curve. I mean, once you start building a team, it's no longer learning how to talk to sellers and how to do contracts. Now it's learning how to motivate your team and be a leader, and how do you work on the business instead of in the business. And so throughout your journey, you're always going to have new learning and new pain points that you're going to have to learn to get over. So.
Yeah, I think so. I think one difficulty for me in the past few months has been like trying to work too much on the business, and the core business is not doing well, even though I have people that are working for me. It's like they're not bringing enough contracts in. Like I need to hunker down again, work in the business just to get this thing going again.
Yep, that's happened to me a few times where I've had to let people go. Like right now I got 3 acquisitions. If one were to leave, I'd probably be okay. I would just turn down the marketing a little bit. It wouldn't be too bad, and I would work on hiring. But if 2 left, I would probably have to get back in the weeds again and start talking to sellers. And you have to get back in the business until you build back up again, into where you start working on the business again. And that happens. It happens in dispo. It happens in transaction coordination. It's going to happen everywhere until you get all those key players in place. And even then, nothing is forever. Just because you got an A+ player, rock star now, doesn't mean that you're going to have them a year from now. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that's a gem in itself. Like you work really hard to build this automated system, but people are people. It's
people are people. Yeah, and now there's a lot of things you could do to mitigate that. Like I was talking about, how we do keep our A+ players. I call it the diamond handcuffs. Put the diamond handcuffs on them, let them grow with you. And then, they will stick around. Your good ones will stick around. In our Monday morning meetings, we're always talking about mindset, talking about new books to read. So we're always working on their self-growth and also business growth. We're always meeting on goals, what they want to achieve in life and how they want to get there, and maybe how we can be a vehicle for that. And that's the way you got to look at it. And it's been a blessing. But I mean, we still have turnover here and there. The last turnover we had was probably 3 months ago. Lost an acquisition. He went to the lending world and became a mortgage underwriter, and he's a great person. And then we got another acquisition that came in, and he's killing it because he came from another company, so he knew the game really well. He was a referral through the network of people I know, and I brought him in, and he was off to the races.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to mention earlier. Is like the value that I've seen working in person in an office is that learning through reverse osmosis, and like they're learning even if they don't want to be, because they're overhearing your calls and stuff, and they really starting to pick up things. Versus my VAs overseas, it's like I can type my comments and give them feedback on recorded phone calls, but that's another risk too, because they might take it personally, or like they don't hear my intonations, my tones about how I'm trying to deliver this feedback. So,
Absolutely.
it's just tough.
Yeah. Their culture is different too. Your tone,
Yeah.
the way you say something could mean something totally different to them and their culture than what it means here to us. And yeah, I know it works though. I mean, I know people out there doing it. So
Yeah.
it's all about what your vision is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a good thing to start out with, like, especially if it's like, well, I don't know if I can afford to pay someone a salary or even like more than $10 an hour. So it's good to just get experience managing people. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but definitely hope to.
Absolutely. And you could bring them in on commission only. If they're commission only, then, their revenue is tied to your revenue. And that way you're not, coming out of pocket, with overhead on their salary and their labor costs until a deal closes.
Okay. Is that what you're doing now, or do you pay
We're
them
transitioning into that. We didn't do that in the beginning. No, they were on an hourly with a commission, and now we're transitioning over to all commission. Of course, their commission structure will be more money. But we're having such traction now where the commission structure works really well for them and they want it. And then it also helps us if we did have a bad month, then, I'm not losing sleep. My hard cost is what I'm trying to get rid of. I'm doing everything I can to knock down that overhead, my all around hard costs. And I don't mind dishing out more money to do that, because that's going to get them more motivated. They're going to be, closing more deals, and it makes them almost like kind of like a partner as a versus like, an employee. Like I said, I hate that word. So
yeah, it's definitely a good way to look at it. So how does that commission change? Is it like a 5% to 10% move?
It went from 7 to 10, but with the 10, now when they hit $100,000 a month in closed revenue for the company, they get extra bonuses. Like at 100,000, it's a $2,000 extra bonus. At 120,000, it's a $3,000 bonus. All the way up, we have this built out on a scale. Like we have a Word doc, or not Word, an Excel spreadsheet, and it goes all the way up to they close $500,000 in 1 month, and they get this like ridiculous, $50,000 bonus or something. So it's a ladder, and so we'll be implementing that. Plus at the base, they're getting 10%. So they're stoked about it.
Okay, got it. That's interesting. That's on the acquisition side, but disposition, is that a different commission structure?
It is. So right now on the hourly, he's getting 3.5% all direct to seller, because he's getting everyone's deals. He's getting paid off everyone's deals, but he'll be bumped up to 5% when we go all commission. And then I also allow him, when he brings JVs to the table, which he does a lot of, he's very proficient at getting JV deals. I pay him 20% off JV deals, because to me, JV, there's no marketing costs, there's no overhead. That was a free deal that we obtained through your networking skills, or maybe through your social media skills. And so when he brings one in from that channel, I allow him to keep 20%.
Okay, that's interesting. And then actually on JVs, with the other investor involved, like, do you all split everything 50-50, or how do you structure those JVs?
They're all different. It depends. We like to make at least 5. So, every relationship is different. Sometimes we do 50-50, sometimes we do 60-40, 70-30. Every deal is different. We negotiate by a deal by deal basis, but we want to make a minimum at least $5K per deal.
Okay, got it.
Which I would say our average is probably somewhere around 10.
Okay. But across the board, the absolute minimum is 5.
Yeah. I don't want to spin my team's wheels if we're making $2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're saying that. Sorry, I just was saying that those are just to get the reps in. That's what I was doing initially. I'll make 1,000 or 2,000. Like, it's not really going to like quit your day job income, but I definitely get the experience for the next one. The confidence.
And it's probably good when you're a solopreneur to do it, but when you got a team and you got a lot of overhead, the time that they're taking away to work that $3,000 deal, they're taking away that time from the bigger deals that you got that they could be working on. So that's why, and 5,000 is probably too low of a benchmark for us. We should probably raise it to 10,000, even though that is our average. But it's probably too low, because I got to spin my transaction coordinator's wheels. I got to spin my file handler's wheels, and then I got to spin my disposition guy's wheels. So I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces on the back end of closing deals. So.
Got it. One thing before we go, I forgot to ask, how long did it take you to have your business running before you could leave your day job as a blackjack dealer?
I quit in the end of 2018. So 2019 is when I quit. I went wholesaling in 2017. So a year to year and a half. We'll call it a year and a half, when I was doing both at the same time. And when I saw that, okay, I can make the leap of faith and let this go and just work on this only. And it's funny, when I did that, my revenue on my real estate side jumped through the roof, because I was able to put so much more attention and bandwidth into it. I remember Sean Terry made me in the boardroom mastermind. I was part of the mastermind when I was working my casino job, and he made me do a promise by the end of the year of 2018. If I didn't quit, I was gonna have to pay this charity $15,000. So he made it a hard commitment for me. And then and I was unsure still when I got towards the end of the year. And it's funny, it was another thing from God. I went to Vegas and I went ice skating on one of the top of the casinos. I fell and broke my wrist. So I couldn't come home and deal blackjack. I had to be off for 3 months. This is the end of 2018. So I saw that a complete sign from God that this is at the time to do it. So I went in and gave my resignation letter, and they just walked me right back out. So.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, that sounds great. I think that's good. I've heard a lot of wise people giving it at least 12 months to run with, but there's a certain point where you need to just cut it off.
Ideally, you want to have, living costs and business expenses about 6 months in the bank. That's what they say. I had less than that when I did it. I know I had less than that. I still had some money coming in. I know I had my 401k that was left over that I didn't blow out, because you could take 50%, and that's what I lost in my fix and flipping journey. But I knew I still had some money there. And so, you want to ideally have about 6 months around that if you can. Now, like I said, I didn't follow that, but, use your best judgment, be careful. You don't want to run yourself bankrupt and quit your job. And then, but obviously on that note, have the leap of faith too. Believe in yourself. You got to go out there and just do it. And it's going to be scary no matter what. It's scary to be an entrepreneur. But the only way to do it is jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
Definitely. Yeah. Before we started recording, I mentioned I went to China for 2 years and I started a product development company there. At that time, I did exactly that. And I was a lot less wiser. I was like 23 and I just left the day job. I got a bonus, like 20,000 in the bank. And to me, that was basically $1 million. So I was like, I'm good.
23, you're like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you know what, I'm going to build that cash reserve, and I'm actually like several steps ahead, but doing exactly what you're saying. So yeah, on the right track, it sounds like, but it's tough because you still got to pay the bills when you're trying to save. So,
yeah, you got to eat, your family's got to eat, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
And then on that note, when you first do it, don't be going out there and buying the Lamborghinis and Corvettes and all that, when you're first becoming an entrepreneur, put all that money away. If you're having some good months, great, that's amazing. Put it away. Keep it for the company, and use it to build your company up. Don't go out there and just blow it, going to nightclubs, going to Vegas, buying the Lamborghini. And I see a lot of wholesalers, that's what they do. And then they're right back to square one again. And they can't understand why they're not having consistency of lead flow and deals. And because you're on this crazy roller coaster on how you manage your finances.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the first people that go out of business when the economy turns.
Absolutely.
My only temptation when I have a big pile of cash would be pay down my mortgage some more, pay down the auto loan, just try to get debt free. The
auto loan, really, I would definitely say that's a good one. The mortgage, I would say that could wait a little while, and while you're building up your business.
Yeah. And also like the principal balance is so much larger. And so I think One thing that I could always take from Dave Ramsey is that snowball effect. Focus on those smaller pieces of debt first to gain some momentum and pay those off first. So.
Yep. And maybe just allocate an extra $500 a month to pay off principal, pay it off faster. And that way, 5 years from now, when you're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pay this off, that note's going to be much smaller than if you're just paying the minimum payment every month.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do now. I pay like an extra 100 or 200, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but
It adds up.
Yeah, you're burning off years. Like, it's hard to get excited when I'm like, oh, I'm only saving like 5 or 10 years at the end of the 30-year note. But it might be one day where I can pay a big slug and cut off.
Yep. The
5,
time will
10 more
come where
years.
you'll be happy you did it. So your future self will thank you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Perfect. So the last thing before we go, you mentioned that you're having people link up with you on Facebook because you're starting this coaching mentoring program. Could you just go into that some more? Like, when do you plan on having that fully ramped, or can people already get involved, or
Yeah, people can get involved now. It's fully ramped. We got 30 students right now as we speak. And I just got that through organic traffic on my Facebook because people have been following my journey, closely. And then when people learned I was doing coaching, they jumped on board. If you want to find more about it, just hit me up on Facebook and you could DM me right there. And then you can see, check me out on Facebook. I'm always posting content on there. It's Corey Geary, Corey, Geary, Geary. I'm also on Instagram, Geary Corey. It's backwards, but I don't post a lot of content on Instagram. I'm more of a Facebook guy. And the name of the coaching is called New Age Wholesaling. The future of wholesaling is now, because we're trying to do, the cutting edge, stay ahead of the curve techniques like the PPC and novations, and just be ahead of what the competition is doing out there. So newagewholesaling.com. That's just a sign up sheet right now, but we're going to have a website built out there soon. Otherwise, if you want more info, hit me up on Facebook.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I'll include all that in the show notes as well. I'll find your Facebook link there and drop it in. But I think this has all been really helpful. Definitely dropping gems all over the place. So this is great.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, my friend. I do really appreciate it.
Sure. No problem. Do it again.
Okay.
All right. That's another episode of Scalable Real Estate Investing. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to leave a review and subscribe on whatever channel you're using to listen or watch these episodes. And also be sure to go to scalablerealestateinvesting.com, scroll to the bottom, and fill out the form to sign up for our email. And you could also reach me directly at mason@scalablerealestateinvesting.com. That's MASON at scalablerealestateinvesting.com. If you'd like to get in touch with me to either partner on deals or even be considered to do your own episode on this podcast. Thanks again, and have a great day.